Fucking fuck you, dude. Come on. Well, I'm just adding more time to my day. I can't believe I did that. No, go with easy step. Right now, I'm near Philadelphia. Of course, I kind of wasn't paying much attention, took a wrong turn, so I gotta double back, which is gonna add more time than I really wanted to. Let's see. There's got to be a better way than this. Oh, my phone's not. Shouldn't be connected. What the hell is going on? Oh God. I got it. I got it. Oh my Jesus. I knew I should have just brought my camera with me and just hooked it up. It's the hooking the phone thing is just completely wigged out the phone. I'll figure it out. I gotta go another couple miles this way.
He holds multiple senior level certifications, including AWS Senior CWI and AS&T Level 3 and 5 different NDT methods. And he's played a major role in training and consulting to NAVSE standards. Al also teaches courses for ASME and has authored numerous technical articles from AWS publications and inspection tracks. I'm honored to have him here to share his journey, knowledge, and insights with all of you. We'll get right into his episode after a quick word from our supporters. When it comes to custom welding gear, nobody does it like Outlaw Leather. These are the original handcrafted welding hoods, PPE, and accessories built right in the heart of Texas. Whether you're laying beads in the pipe rack or laying out for your next big fab project, Outlaw's got you covered with top quality leather gear that's as tough as you are. From layout tools and tool bags to custom stitched leather hoods with your name and colors, if you can dream it, they can build it. Everything is built for real welders by real welders. Their attention to detail is second to none, and they don't cut corners when it comes to materials, fit, or finish. You can shop their in-stock gear right now at outlawleather.com, or you can email them at info@outlawleatherllc.com to get a fully custom design hood made just for you. And don't forget, use promo code ARCJunkies at checkout to get 15% off on all their in-stock handmade leather goods. Support the original, support Outlaw. Are you ready to help shape the future of welding? Then don't miss the AWS Weld Summit happening August 6th through the 8th at the Woodlands Resort in Woodlands, Texas. This isn't your average conference. It's an immersive 3-day experience packed with technical sessions, panel discussions, and networking opportunities with the brightest minds in welding. From code committee members and industry experts to educators and up-and-coming professionals, the Weld Summit brings together the best in the business. Whether you're in inspection,
Or am I driving? I'm driving a 2024 Chevy Colorado.
This event is designed to elevate your knowledge of our trade. Register now at aws.org/conferences and be part of the conversations that matter. And hey, because you're a listener to the ARC Junkies, you can use code ARCJunkies at checkout when you register to receive a free gift just for signing up.
Sir, it's
All right,
proven to be quite a nice,
drop your hood and turn me up front.
quite a nice road trip vehicle, actually. I had a Ford Ranger that was a newer Ranger in 2019. It was a nice truck, but I'm not a small person. I'm about 6'4", and I didn't fit in it too well. The seats didn't fit too well. These seats fit much nicer, and I can set it back further too, so I fit better.
All right, Al, good evening. It is an honor and a privilege to have you on the ARC Junkies podcast this evening, sir.
Well, thanks for the invitation.
Oh, my pleasure. I spoke with Tim Lucas a while back. I guess you guys are both in the same AWS section up there.
Yep.
And he recommended you to come on the podcast. I was like, he would be a great guest, but like I've traveled to a bunch of seminars, conferences. I hear your name all over the place. You know, through AWS, ASME. We know a lot of the same people, but I've never had the privilege to meet you in person.
I'll only believe half of it. The rest of lies.
I guess it depends on where you're from. Speed limit here is 70 miles an hour.
But the more I got to talking,
obviously,
the more I got to talking to Tim, I was like, man, it sounds like we have some, pretty similar stories. You started off doing structural steel ironwork as well, before you got into your elaborate career of welding and NDT and all that. What was it about structural steel ironwork that kind of brought you into that sector of the industry?
Property. I actually got involved with welding. I bought my first welder when I was 13. And so I actually had my own business registered with the state of Connecticut when I was in high school. Then I went to Ohio State until they shut down the schools because of the shootings at Kent State by the National Guard. When I came back to Connecticut, a neighbor that had moved in my absence, he was an iron worker, and he said, hey, if you need a job, you can come to work with me. So I went out permit for a couple of months. And I said, if this is what I'm going to be doing for a living, I need to learn how to do it correctly. So I jumped in on their apprenticeship program. But, you need money.
Yeah.
It was work,
right.
And they pay well. And I loved it. I really did enjoy it. I'm still a member of Local 15 out of Hartford, retired. But I've been doing for, 55 years now.
Congratulations.
Sounds good.
Take
Take it easy.
What program consist of back when you went through?
Well, the best of my memory, we went to school for 1 month before they let us out in the field. And then we would go to school one night a week, and that was for 3 years. So again, you know, you're looking for the on-the-job hours, and in the classroom is strictly theory.
Yeah.
Welding class, rigging, you know, steel erection and whatnot.
Yeah, that was, so my apprenticeship was kind of similar. We had to go through as part of our first course we had to go through. But we went 2 nights a week, Mondays and Wednesdays from 6:30 to 9:30. It was a 4-year program, but now they've since changed it to where I guess the apprentices, they go to work for 6 months and then they go to school for 2 weeks, and they run 5-10s for 2 weeks, and then they back OGT for another 6 months, and then they kind of rotate back and forth like that. I think the the iron workers run that way, the boiler makers run that way in our area. I know the 803, the pipe fitters, they still, I believe they're 2 nights a week. That's still how they run their program, a couple hours a night.
Well, you know, back then you didn't have the formalization that you do now. Like I said, we went to school for 1 month, and basically that's where they taught us the safety. You know, back then there was no OSHA.
Yeah.
OSHA hadn't even been formed yet.
Tie-offs, none of that.
None of that. I mean, you know, we still had guys that were complaining about having to wear hard hats. You know, that's how new it was. And, but they tried to, you know, orientate you so that you're thinking safety and, you know, stay on the American side of the beam when you're picking it with the crane and all that stuff to hopefully keep you alive long enough to learn the trade. They did a pretty good job. But yeah, it was 3 years back then.
Okay. And then what was it that prompted, because you were the first CWI in the United States, or in the country, to obtain your CWI as a union ironworker, correct? Back in 1981?
Yep.
Take the exit toward I-276.
There we go. Now I can hear
They
you.
applied in '79. But when you had to fill out your application, it said they wanted your work history. Well, hey, I followed directions. I listed every job and every employer that I'd ever worked for. And the young lady down in, well, I think, yeah, it was in Miami at that time, I think. And she says, if you think I'm going to call all these people up to verify your experience, you're out of your mind. Clicked and hung up. So when I reapplied in '81, I just put down self-employed, and they bought that. But I actually did it on a challenge. I was the youngest welder to get qualified for bridges in Connecticut. I was qualified for bridges as an apprentice, and so you can imagine that's what I did, weld. But anyways, I was on a job, and the inspector on the job was actually a structural engineer. And he said, Al, you know a lot about welding, but you don't have any credentials. As far as everybody knows, you're just another welder. He says, what do you think of inspectors? And at the time, I didn't have a very high opinion.
I was going to say, most iron workers
Because
don't.
they'd show up on the job with
No.
sneakers and shorts and a t-shirt. They wouldn't even have a hard hat, and they'd kind of wander around the job because they didn't have any real training. And so he challenged me to take the CWI, and I said, well, let's make it interesting. I said, well, I'll take the examination. I said, when I pass it, I said, we go out to dinner and you pick up the tab. And you worked in the trades, you know how much you can pack away. My lunchbox looked like a family picnic basket. And he said, well, fair is fair. He said, when you fail it, and then he chuckled, he says, you pick up the tab. And I'm telling you right now, I like a fine wine with my meal. Well, I passed it. I haven't missed any meals since. But I stayed with the iron workers, I continued with the trades, but with that engineer, I was working with him on the weekends. And that's how I got involved with the CWI. Like I said, it was on a bet.
I've heard a lot of people getting into the CWI program for a lot of various reasons, but you're the first one to say, no, I won a bet. Or lost, I took a bet, and then won.
This was the guy that Ted said to me, like I said, he was a structural engineer. And he said, Al, I can always tell a welder, but I can't tell him much. And I guess that was his way of telling me I was a bonehead. Listen for a change. And that always stuck with me. But I worked with him, actually worked with him part-time. up until the day he died. I think he was 77, if I remember right, when he passed away, but he and I had been on a job together, gone back to his office to, you know, put the report together, and had plans for the next day where we were going to go. And he died in his sleep, which, you know, if you got to go, that's the way to go.
That'd be the best way to do it.
But he was one of my mentors. I mean, I was fortunate in my lifetime that I've had several mentors. Initially, welders that, you know, knew what they were doing. And then this particular engineer kind of took me under his wing. And so I've been very fortunate in that respect. You know, people were willing to spend time with me and, you know, teach me things that I really needed to know.
Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
wild
That's
animals.
the big thing about the industry is like passing that information off to the next generation. You know, it doesn't do you any good to hold that information in and never share it with anybody, and then you die and you take that with you.
Right, exactly. You got to propagate. You got to pass that information on to the next generation.
Yeah, I've had a lot of great conversations with Bill Newell, and he's very big on that. It's like, you know, just dumping pallets of information on me. You know, I'll ask a question, and he gives me way more than I ask, which is I love it. It's fantastic, and I think that's why I keep having more and more conversations with him, just because he's, you know, like you, 5 decades in the welding industry. He's got so much information to share.
Yeah, I've heard his name. I don't know the man.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Hopefully, are you coming out? Do you ever do any like the seminars, conferences, anything like that?
I actually taught the CWI for about 8 years, but I was teaching AWS and ASME, and my wife got sick. She passed away. She got sick. I couldn't stay on the road so much. I had to make a decision, and AWS was the one that fell by the wayside.
I got you.
You know, unfortunately, money talks.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the CWI. I believed in the CWI. You know, I served on the Q&C committee for close to 20 years. And yeah, I'm a firm believer in that CWI program.
Yeah. Now, do you think that the stuff that you learned during your apprenticeship program, the stuff that you learned out on the job site as a journeyman iron worker, do you think that's going to help shape your career as an inspector? Just having that background knowledge about, you know, welding and what actually works, what doesn't.
Absolutely, absolutely. You knew where to look. You know, let's face it, iron workers, welders, inspectors, we're all human. And we try to take the easy road out. So where are they going to have problems? The locations where it's hard to access. And so that's where you spend your time. You look at those areas that are difficult to access, where you have poor fit up, and you know, that's usually where the problem is. Everything that's wide open and easily accessible, those are no-brainers. Everybody can do that. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, as an inspector, one of the reasons I'd get hired is because you're not afraid to walk the iron. That's what you did for your living. And so I remember on one job, the contractor hid all the ladders so that I couldn't get to any of the connections. Well, what do you do as an iron worker? You climb the column. And of course, he put in a complaint that it wasn't fair for the inspector to climb columns. And of course, the general contractor just laughed at him. But yeah, definitely influenced the ability to perform the inspections that you need to.
That probably blew his mind when you walked over there, just grabbed hold of the flange and started walking up the web.
Yeah.
I've never seen an inspector do that. Usually I have to pick them up, and when I was out in the field before I got my CWI, I'd have to pick them up in the man lift or the scissor lift and drive them from, you know, weld point to weld point.
Well, we never had man
Right,
lifts.
yeah, you didn't have that luxury back in the day.
No, they didn't come out until I was inspected for several years. That was kind of a mind bender to be able to access these locations with a bucket. I'm like, wow.
I imagine. What was the transition like doing, you know, going from structural steel iron work to the inspection side of the house?
Well, it was kind of slow. Like I said, I was working on structurals as an iron worker and working as the inspector on the weekends.